Thanks, John. So I get the fun part of talking about all the great things that we've all done together over the last few years, and then Glenn's going to talk about where we're headed over the next few years. So what have we actually done? In partnership with the Environmental Trust, we've been able to fund 101 community recycling centres around the state, and as of this Monday just passed, we've got 57 of those officially launched, and 80 or so in total are operating to a greater or lesser extent. So some of those are already fully launched, and some of them are just starting out. To help these centres get off the ground and to make sure that they're running as effectively and as well as they can be once they're launched, we've been able to deliver quite supportive implementation, resources in the team members that are in the community recycling section, and we've worked with our contractor to provide training to each individual CRC site for staff that will be working at the centres. We've developed a custom-built reporting platform that allows us to communicate with our grantee or partner centres, and for those centres to in turn report to us on how they're going. We've implemented an independent auditing program to provide the EPA and each individual centre with feedback on how they're going and provide recommendations on areas for improvement. And we've run a statewide campaign to support both the community recycling centres and the household chemical clean-out program, and we've supported our local centres in delivering education and communication activities for their regions. Lots of pieces to the puzzle. So for anyone that doesn't know, you probably all know, there are 9 target materials that we're trying to accept through these community recycling centres. So this whole network around the state has been established specifically to target these materials. Many centres collect a wider range of materials, but that's at the discretion of the individual centre. So where are they all? They are literally all around New South Wales. So the green icons indicate those that are already publicly launched. The red are the ones that are not yet launched, and we've got a couple of yellow icons which are for our mobile services, and they operate a little bit differently to the fixed facilities, and you'll hear from one of those in a few minutes. So while the community recycling network has a lot that is uniform, each centre is unique in its own way. So I'm just going to touch on some of those individual differences. So Narrabri, they have their own centre, and it's been put together to support a very small population. The interesting thing with this facility is there's roller doors at the front. So it's located on an unsecured site. So at the end of a shift, the staff can roll down those roller doors, lock them and secure the contents. So that's quite an innovative solution for that area. Going on to Bega, they've got quite an open facility because it's located within a secure, broader facility. You can see that there's roller doors at the back, so council can actually roll those up and extract full containers and replace them with empty ones, while community members are driving up the front and unloading their vehicles. So there's no crossover with traffic. So if you've got a bit of extra space, that's a great solution. A bit closer to Sydney, we've got Wingecarribee. As you can see, it's a larger centre, it's quite enclosed. This particular centre captures a wider range of materials than a lot of others. They had a bit more room than their counterparts in Leichhardt, who've had a very, very space-constrained site. As you can see, we've got some of the receptacles under shelter, the ones that really need to be there, and some of them outside. This was a very challenging site, I understand, so kudos to Leichhardt for working with us to make it happen. So they all look a little bit different depending on the site where they're located and the community that they're servicing. But they do have consistency. They all have the same types of receptacles to collect the different materials, and they've got consistent signage throughout the state. And the signage is the same look and feel as the statewide and local education campaigns. So they all link together very nicely. So in getting each centre off the ground, the Community Recycling Centre team have been able to provide tailored support in working with councils on their design, the design of their facilities, how they'll manage the traffic, making sure that there's appropriate safety equipment on site like emergency showers, spill kits, working with our contractor to deliver on-site training for the staff that will be managing those facilities. And we've developed an extensive, comprehensive handbook that lives at each centre. So staff that work at these sites have a ready reference at any time for what to do in certain circumstances and how certain materials react. So we've tried to be as supportive as we can in helping the sites get off the ground. We've custom built a reporting platform which each centre reports into at least every week. Every centre's been provided with a tablet so they can actually walk around the facility and touch the screen to update how full various containers are for various material types. So every week we get an update for how much room, how much capacity is left at each site for each material type. It's not just a one-way reporting system either. Each council, because they have a unique login, can log in at any time and extract their information. So if they have regular or ad hoc reporting requests, they can hop in there at any time and pull out their whole data and cut it any way they like. And from the EPA's perspective, we can hop into the back end of the system and see all of the CRCs across the state and how they're going with their full and their empty receptacles. And this in turn feeds into the work of our contractor. After a certain threshold, it'll trigger a collection out to a centre. So we've been told it's quite easy to use, which is great, but it's definitely been custom built for these facilities. Okie dokie, sorry, I've just lost myself, all my bits of paper. So we've implemented an auditing program. We've got an external contractor who goes out to centres after they've been launched for a couple of months, just to make sure that they're running as well as they could be and in accordance with the safe work method statements and the risk management plans that have been developed for each site. They'll also check that the signage is in place, that the safety equipment is on site and being used correctly, and they'll provide a report to the EPA with recommendations for both things that the site can do to improve the safety and the running of the site, and in some cases recommendations to the EPA about how we can better support the centres. Those reports obviously go as well to each individual centre, so we're committed to working with each individual site on site to get that training up front and then the ongoing interaction with the auditing program. And we've undertaken a statewide communication campaign and supported local initiatives both through funding and developing a suite of resources that each centre can tailor to their needs. So we've got, I think it's around 100 different icons for different materials, and we've got ready-made resources that the centres can update with their logo or their website or what have you. And we're also pretty proud that we've been able to support innovative communication activities and tailored things where people have some really great ideas, but they still have the same look and feel of the broader campaign. A few of these examples, we've got Wingecarribee have essentially a whiteboard, and they're able to colour in how much they've received for various material types, so it's kind of a real-time visual reporting mechanism for their community. We've got Singleton's education trailer, which travels around their LGA, and this promotes the service. We've got the Cumberland Council fridge magnet. The Northern Sydney region has put together a postcard flyer, and Lake Macquarie's done some bus advertising promoting their Awabba Centre. So as you can see, these are all vastly different types of resources to promote the service, but they still have the same look and feel, which is really great and it's very good when you're trying to support statewide awareness raising and use of the services. So where are we? Thanks to all these pieces of the puzzle working together in concert, and thanks to all the hard work of our grantees in getting these sites off the ground, and the people using them and the regions supporting them and all the organisations that have promoted the services. We've collected 1.6 million kilograms through these centres so far, which I think is a pretty terrific effort. So thank you all for your very, very hard work, and we are looking forward to seeing that number continue to increase, but I think it's an incredible effort given that we only had a couple launched in 2013, so tremendous effort, thank you. Where are we now? We've funded 101 CRCs, 79 of which are in regional New South Wales, and we've funded 22 in metropolitan areas. The metropolitan area is where most of New South Wales lives, so this is something that we'll be looking at and Glenn will talk to a little bit. Overall, we've got a 62% coverage across the state in terms of what we see as reasonable access to the services. But as you can see, regional residents have proportionally greater access to the centres than the metro residents. So again, this is something we'll be working on. And in terms of the campaign, how that's going on a statewide and local basis, both of the campaign, I guess the levels of the campaign are working in concert. In 2014, we had an awareness of the household problem waste programs of about 40%. We're aiming for 60% by the end of this financial year, which we're pretty confident we're going to reach, and we're just about to commission research to measure that. But it's not just about awareness of the services, it's about how people are thinking about these materials that are accepted by these services. And our social research throughout Wasteless has shown that people's behaviour, or reported behaviour, has improved for things like batteries. They're less likely to put it in the garbage bin, that's reduced from 63 to 47%, and fluoro globes, 63 to 39%. And their likelihood of using a household problem waste service for these materials has also improved. So for batteries, it's gone from 10 to 21%, and for fluoro globes, 4 to 22%. So we're actually seeing some changes in how people are thinking about these materials. I'm going to hand over to Glenn.
Greetings, folks. So the future directions, we've got quite a few challenges in the next 4 years, not the least of which is to spend $57 million, which is nice. Okay. A good place to be in. I have to say that for the last 4 years and the next 4 years, we see some great challenges in front of us, and we see a lot of good things coming from it. The priority that we initially going to focus on is how to fill in the gaps in what we see as the network later down the track, and we hope that those grants will be announced this calendar year, so next financial year, but sometime this calendar year we hope those grants open, and we will be focusing on areas that don't yet have a CRC or didn't apply in the first 3 rounds that we've provided. We've done a fairly serious study into a strategy, develop a strategy on where the location of the next round should be, and we've identified that we need at least 23 more centres, and 19, when we say the metro area, we include Newcastle, or the Hunter and the Illawarra within that region, within that metro concept, if you like, and that's what more than half the state's population is, as you say. There's still 4 centres that we've identified in regional areas that we think are well worth establishing one there, and we'll be working directly with those councils to try and get them up. When we try and assess that or present it, this is a population density, and you can see the northern parts of Sydney and areas just on the colour coding there. You can see the density of people that are quite distant from CRC that are currently got grants for. And where you say 10 k's mightn't be a big distance, if you travel 10 k's in Sydney, you're sitting in your car for a fair while. So you've got that to balance against. The first round of grants, we want to focus specifically on CRCs, but later, why didn't that click on? Yep, CRCs, holes in the network. Future rounds, there's 2 sort of components that we're still working up as a concept. We feel that there is some high density areas in some of the major population centres that don't need a full-blown CRC, and we're exploring the options of things like library collections or smaller scale collections within high-rises or high-density areas. We also feel that will be linked to some sort of mobile system, and that's what we're still developing. We also feel that there's some remote areas, for example, Wilcannia and Burke and places like that, that are too small a population to warrant a full-blown CRC. Now, the mobile systems that we've currently explored and evaluated are not the most appropriate way to deal with those quite remote areas. So we'll be exploring ideas of either moving events or temporary CRCs. But as I say, that's still in the design phase. But we'll certainly address that in the next 4 years. What we're driving for is we're trying to transition the bulk of the materials that have been coming to the mobile events to draw all the high volume, low toxic materials into the community recycling centres. We feel they're safe to do that way. We're getting major issues, particularly in Sydney, of just the logistics of putting so many people through a site, so much volume of materials coming through a site that we're choking sites. And over the years we've shut down some of the events because they just cannot cope with the amount of people. Eventually the people come to another site, so we say, well, let's run it for 2 or 3 days. So we're right on the cusp of saying, no, look, we have to do something, and we want to move the bulk of the stuff to a permanent facility to provide a better service. That will, we'll then try to focus those mobile events on the low volume, high toxic materials. At those events we have qualified chemists, they're specialised, set up to deal with the more dangerous materials. And we hope then that the volume dramatically reduces, then the frequency of those events we hope to reduce as well. And particularly in regions, they might do it every second year, they might do it every 6 months instead of 3 months. We're hoping to move the costs and the volume across the CRCs where there's a permanent solution for permanent problems. We are also looking at product stewardship. We see stepping into the game very seriously in the next 4 years. As many of you realise, paint product stewardship is getting very close. There's been a lot of discussion about CDS at this conference. That will impact on some of the CRCs, possibly not all of them. But there's other products coming along too. We hope in the future that batteries will soon get legs, and we'll have some solutions to that. We also see that the CRCs that are running have to go through a process of maturity, and we see that there are many materials that will continually come through the market and have to be dealt with. They will be a problem. Much of the stuff they invent nowadays just doesn't lend itself to the red bin, if you like. So, yeah, we see as a dynamic that we'll always continue to evaluate and move forward with. We hope, as you say, in 4 years that more product stewardship programs come on. What the people who have an existing CRC, what you'll notice is come June there'll be a new round of agreements, because we set agreements with each CRC when they opened, which we had to put a cut-off date of 2017. Now that we've got funding, we'll have to put another cut-off date of 2021, and then those agreements won't much change, except we'll ask you to play nicely. If you get asked to be involved in a product stewardship scheme, we'd encourage you to get involved in those schemes when the option arises. We'll also have another version of the handbook that's coming out shortly, with just more explanation that teases out a few more things you might have had questions on. We'll also put out a self-audit or a survey that we'll ask each of you to fill in, which, as I said, is like a self-audit. Is your risk management up to date? Is your training up to date? Where else do you want to go? What's been good? What's been bad? Are you happy with us? Are you happy with the contractor? Those sort of things. We do need solid feedback to direct our next effort, if you like. Now, if you don't have a CRC, we'd encourage you to apply in the next grant. Next grant round, that could well be out soon. There is another soft option, if you like, for councils that have existing facilities that may not have met some of the earlier criteria. If you feel that you can construct a CRC and meet all our minimum standards, and you can justify your population, that please send it to me. Ask the question. Let's start a conversation. There are options that we can draw others into the network, if you know what I mean, if you have something that you can make work.
So yeah, please don't be afraid to tap me on the shoulder and say, how does this look? How can we improve our services? If you've already got a CRC, what we'd like you to do is to keep reviewing what you've got. We made our best efforts on advising how best to set it up. Our contractor's been unbelievably useful in establishing and commissioning those CRCs. But once you start operating and you've been running for a few months, our auditor comes through and makes a further recommendation, but you will know best what's happening at your site. Review it, check it out. Are people putting the stuff in the right place? Are there any risks that you haven't addressed before? Keep checking that your training's up to date. Don't be afraid to continuously improve what you're doing. And keep reviewing what you've done. More importantly, tell us what your future plans are. The further challenge we have in the next 4 years is for us to formulate what's going to happen after 2021. For us to formulate something sound, we need as much feedback as we can get on where you think it should go. How do these CRCs mature? Is there a commonality of materials that are giving you all headaches? Is there systems you think should change? We'll gather that and soak it up like a sponge and develop where we think where we want to challenge to get the next round of funding from 2021 on. We feel that this system is working and working well, and while ever it keeps doing that, we can't see why the funding won't be ongoing as well, particularly if we can demonstrate that product stewardship's rolling out and the system is working well. Stay in touch, please, and give us your ideas. Talk to Janet and myself, and we've now got any amount of questions that you'd like to throw at us. How are we going for time? And thank you very much.